This is Dr. Jack Wolfson, the paleocardiologist, and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Heart Show. Today, I am honored to have on Vinnie Tortorich on my podcast. Vinnie has interviewed me for his, and we had such a great time, and we're so in alignment. I couldn't wait to get him onto my show. Now, Vinnie is the celebrity trainer. He wrote a book called Fitness Confidential a few years ago. It's done so well on Amazon, so many phenomenal reviews. And Vinnie is well known as the angriest trainer. So he exposes the nasty underbelly of the fitness industry while getting you in the best shape of your life. He's been at this for over 20 years. His podcast is not to be missed. He's got over 1,000 episodes that are on there, and he's interviewed the best of the best. So make sure you check out a copy of his book, Fitness Confidential, and Vinnie will tell us more about where to find him and what he's doing and all about his podcast. So, Vinnie, welcome to the show.
Jack, thanks for having me, man. This is great. I'm glad you're doing a podcast now because you were one of those guests when I had you on my show where you're saying this guy needs to do more of this. And at the time, I didn't even think to say to you, hey, maybe you should start your own podcast because we need this information out there. So thank you for doing this.
No, you got it. It's a pleasure. And I think really, the healthcare revolution is on. It's just so many people are getting into health and wellness, and they're getting away from their medical doctors. And I know that's something you're so passionate about is like, hey, let's just actually prevent things before we need to reach out to the medical doctor, before we get cancer, before we get heart disease. So maybe tell a little bit about your backstory and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I got into, I walked into a gym when I was 8 years old. I'm going to be 56 next week. And, it's been a lifetime of me just, starting off working out and that whole thing. And when I went to college, I went to Tulane University on a football scholarship, and I had to study for something. And Tulane was well known for being a medical university, and most of the classes are geared to either medicine or law. And God, I looked around and went, the world does not need another lawyer. And just, went to get an education degree and ended up getting one in nutrition and exercise physiology. And then what do you do with that? It's like you leave college and you're nothing but a glorified PE teacher. It's like, where do I take this? I could go teach a health class, and that's exactly what I did at first. Very prestigious school in New Orleans, the Newman School, hired me not as a PE teacher, but as a strength and conditioning coach. And I got to work with a couple of guys that ended up becoming Super Bowl MVPs. The Manning kids were there when I was there. And, at some point, you mentioned I've been in this business for 20 years. And I started thinking about it. It's like, wow. It's getting closer to 40 years. It's 37 years I've been doing this. And along the way, early on, I started figuring out that everything I was taught in college was just wrong. Everything you learn in nutrition, everything. And by the way, all the clues were there the whole time, and I tell this story all the time, Jack. A professor had said to us, yeah, your body's preferred method for burning fuel is the macronutrient fat. So I wrote that down, right? And I wrote down everything a professor said. And then a couple of weeks later, the same professor was talking about aerobic activity and how your body needs sugar to burn, fast burning sugar when if you're doing anything like riding a bike or just mowing the lawn or any of this stuff. So I raised my hand and said, hey, I have it here on August 28th that you said that the body's preferred fuel was fat. And he goes, yeah, forget that. I went, yeah, but you said, which will be on the test? Which one should I put down on the test? That won't be wrong. And he goes, well, your body uses fat. It's a slow burning fuel. But if you need readily available energy, you get that from sugar. Well, that was my first clue that, wait a minute, he did say fat, and now he's saying sugar. So I'm not really sure where the truth lies, right? And then, just working with people in the lab and all that kind of stuff with exercise physiology, you notice that when you get someone into the aerobic mode, you have 4 aerobic modes. up to 69%, 70 to 79, and 80 to 89, and so on and so forth, that you can see how fast they're burning through their blood glycogen. We would take them all the way into a bonk. So the question became, how do we not have them bonk? How can some people, like Forrest Gump, even though that wasn't around back then, can just seem to run forever? What are those people doing that are different?
Right.
What are the Maasai tribes doing? What are the Inuits doing? How are they doing this stuff? If you need all this sugar. So there were clues all along the way, but I wasn't willing to switch until I moved to Los Angeles and started working with celebrities. And that's when, they would say, okay, you need to take this woman from a size 4 to a size 2, or this woman just had a baby and she has to walk the red carpet. You need to get weight off of her. I would just pull people off of carbohydrates. Right? And it works like a charm, but then they get real bitchy and real aggravated because you've taken all of their sugar away. And I would say, have a little protein, have a little protein. I was in that school. And then I started figuring out if you gave them a little butter, that seems to save them, because I use the same method for myself. One night I was really hungry, and because I used to model back then too. And I had to be really thin for a shoot. And I went, just put a little butter in my mouth. That can't hurt. And then all of a sudden I felt better. And so if I had to go for a run, I put a little butter in my mouth and go for a run, So it was just accidental, just figuring this stuff out. And then back then it was hard to find anything. Stephen Finney was about the only guy writing anything. Jeff Volek was writing stuff back then. We're talking the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And I would look around. There was no computer, no Google, no nothing. You had to go find stuff and, go figure stuff out. And, there were just clues everywhere. I would read about ketogenic diets, and, you would have to go find microfiche in libraries. But when you're me and you're a nerd and you don't have many friends, you just go do that, because you don't have a date on Saturday night. So, let me go, because I was always trying to figure out some magic potion, because I was riding bikes, and I was doing these long distances. I was going 300, 400, 500 miles on a bike. Wow. So I was looking for that magic bullet of how do I sustain energy? So it wasn't an overnight thing. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent on your first question, but I did.
No, that's all good. So, but clearly you found that as you were supplementing these models and stuff like that, and you were putting them on a high fat diet. So when you say high fat, what kind of stuff did you recommend then? And obviously, has it changed to what you recommend now if you were speaking to one of these supermodels trying to get from a 4 into a 2? How would you do it?
It's not that much different. Back then, like I said, butter was a main thing. I read that when they put back in the 30s and 40s, I read somewhere when babies had seizures, they would put them on a ketogenic diet. And I would go, well, how would they do this? Would they just give them, fat from a cow, or what would they do? They were giving them heavy whipping cream. Mm-hmm. And so I would go out and try to find heavy whipping cream in LA, which is almost impossible because everybody was on skim milk.
Right. Right.
You could find it. I would find like mascarpone cheese and creme fraiche and that kind of stuff. I went to the dairy side of things. And by the way, I was scared of cholesterol back then because there was no one talking about the cholesterol part of it. So I was skeptical about sending clients in that direction. But the one thing I kept noticing back in those days was I can wake up in the morning and have a breakfast cereal and feel crappy within an hour.
Agreed.
Or if I ate bacon, I felt like I could go run a marathon. Yeah. And people would say to me, yeah, it's because there's nitrates and nitrates in there. And I'm like, I don't know. There's something else going on here. I feel like I'm shot out of a cannon when I eat this.
It's so funny, Vinny, that, you mentioned that as far as like, that's one of the healthy things about bacon is the fact it's high in nitrates, nitrites, which are then converted into nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator and fantastic for blood pressure, circulation, and for exercise, stamina, recovery, erectile issues. Who would have thought bacon was so good? And you're saying fry up the bacon if you need a little extra, fry it up in the butter, huh?
Yeah, it's funny how that works because when you think about the whole history of any of it, Dr. Kellogg, who was a Seventh-day Adventist, he didn't believe in sex other than for procreation, and he wasn't sure how he really felt about that. Masturbation was a definite no-no, no way, no how. And they figured out the way to make people not want to have erections was to eat cornflakes.
Wow.
Just what animals are supposed to eat. So that's what they were trying to do.
That's interesting. Great factoid.
Yeah, and so, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Jag, but I was funded to do a movie, and the movie is going to be out early in 2019. It's called Fat, a Documentary. And, I have people talking about that in the movie, I'm talking about it actually. That's part of my thing, talking about Dr. Kellogg's and what was going on in the 1860s that is still carrying on today, that's making us more heart unhealthy by the day.
Certainly, and we'll put all that in the show notes and as a reminder for everybody to check out that, that documentary. There's a lot of literature, as much as me kind of like, I wouldn't say I've pigeonholed myself as a paleo cardiologist. It's all about really living the lifestyle as much as we can of our ancestors. And the paleo person obviously wasn't going after dairy and wasn't eating somebody, another animal's milk. Yet at the same time, the literature is the literature, and the literature really says that those dairy eaters tend to do very well. Butter increases HDL number and HDL function, which may be the holy grail. So I like to hear this butter story. And of course, me personally, I always go for raw dairy whenever possible. The fact that they've gotten that out of our lives is an absolute travesty, but you can find it, you can get it. Raw dairy, raw butter, raw cream, just like nature would have intended. So I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's funny. We were traveling. We travel a lot to go do shows and everything else. And we were up in Seattle this weekend, and we found some heavy cream not far away from our hotel room, and we got it back. And I put some in my coffee the next morning. I tasted it. And went, oh, and then I realized it had either carrageenan or one of the other thickeners that they put in there now. And because it's not what we drink at home, we always have the heavy, cream. And I get it, the good heavy cream without any thickeners, so it's hard to find.
Yeah.
And you pay a lot for it, and not everyone can afford it. But, I always tell people, do the best you can when it comes to raw butter, raw milk, raw everything.
Well, I think those products, but as they're so calorie dense that a little bit of that stuff goes a long way, right? If you put just maybe a tablespoon into your coffee, that could really satiate you for several hours.
Yeah, people always ask me, how much do you put in your coffee? And it makes me sound racist, but I'll say, well, make it look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in color. If it starts to look like Edgar Winter, then you probably went too far. So...
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. I wouldn't say that to Dwayne Johnson personally, but I'll tell him, if I do, I tell him I heard it from you.
Yeah.
What? So tell me some strategies. So you travel a lot, you speak a lot, you're all over. How do you stay healthy? How do you eat healthy while you're traveling?
People ask me that. They were asking me that in Seattle this weekend. That might be the most. I hear people all the time say, well, I travel a lot. It's hard to stay healthy. If you're not, and even if you're in a third world country, you can always find things to eat. And we're never really in third world countries. I'm either in Europe or somewhere in the United States or sometimes it's Central America and sometimes it's Canada. And it doesn't seem that difficult to stay on the straight and narrow. And they'll say, well, what do you have when you're on the plane? Well, if I'm going to Europe from LA and I know I'm going to be on a plane for 10 or 11 hours, I'm going to bring things like pili nuts or macadamia nuts because they travel well. I may also bring a couple of hard-boiled eggs in a Ziploc. Now, when you're in a big wide body, if you're in a small plane going across country, you pull an egg out of a Ziploc, it's going to smell pretty bad. But I always just walk to the back of those wide bodies and, pull it out. Usually the people that work on a plane, they're sitting back there and they don't mind talking to you for a minute while you eat an egg. And I even do a thing where I peel it before I leave home, and I throw salt in the Ziploc bag too, so that I don't have to do any of that. I can just pull it out, eat it. It's gone in a second.
Yep.
So there are a lot of easy things you can do when you travel. Not to mention those long international flights. Usually you can ask them for cheese, or I don't like to fly first class because it's so god awful expensive. But first class has all the good stuff. If you're nice to the person that's waiting on you, I don't know if they even call them flight attendants. I'm always calling them stewards and stewardesses, and people are telling me that's wrong. But what I find is if you say to them, hey, look, you make up something. Hey, I'm gluten intolerant. You have any cheese up in first class? Oh, yeah, we'll get you some right away. They'll just go run up there and grab you whatever they have. They don't care. They don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's easy to get around when you travel.
I always say I'm the guy who opens up a can of sardines on the plane, and nobody likes that guy. And I've got patients that are pilots, and I've asked them over the years, would there ever be a situation where somebody like me could get in trouble or be kicked off a plane for opening up sardines? And they reassure me that we're all safe, when we're doing that. But
good.
It's it's doable. It takes a little effort. It takes some planning, like you said. But that being said, how easy is it to do some hard-boiled eggs? Avocados travel really well. It's just about planning, because if you're not planning, then you're going to wait. You're going to get airline food. You're going to go through airport security. You're going to be hungry, and all there is some fast food, and you're certainly in trouble, right?
You are, and I live in dietary ketosis, so. Look, if I had to, I can go 12 or 15 hours. I could go a whole day and not even feel hungry. But I've done things like, and if you look in every one of my bags, you'll see that there's a Trader Joe's. They'll put coconut oil in these little packets. It looks like the little packets that you get ketchup in when the little squeeze out.
Yeah.
And I have 4 or 5 or 6 of those in every bag. The other thing is, I carry these little 1-ounce glass vials of olive oil, and I throw them into everything. We have them in my wife's purse. We have them in the cars. We have them everywhere. So that when we go to restaurants, you have good olive oil. When you go on airplanes, if you're that hungry, just soak down. When I go kayaking out in the Pacific Ocean, I just down olive oil. It's easy.
Yeah, it's often when you're dining out at restaurants, and even in some of the better places, how they tend to cut the olive oil with canola or some other cheaper oil under the premise that it helps to make it a little more, palatable taste-wise, but obviously it cuts down the expense when you're using some kind of cheap oil. So I love that strategy about bringing your own oil to restaurants. And like you said, if you're in need of a calorie jump, what better way to do it than with olive oil, with coconut oil? I love those ideas.
Yeah, and good olive oil is not, I'm Italian, and so we, like the Greeks, we try to find the good stuff. There's a book called Extra Virginity that your audience might want to go look at.
Okay.
That guy talks about what goes on in the olive oil industry, and is nothing shy of what goes on in the cocaine industry as far as the way they cut it, and they try to push it off as something it's not, and so on and so forth. It's pretty amazing.
Now, you have a recommended olive oil on your website, correct?
Yeah, Villa Capelli has been a sponsor of my show from almost the beginning. And they became a sponsor because I used to talk about their olive oil as if they were a sponsor because it was so damn good.
Yeah.
They're out of Italy. Paul Capelli was a big advertising guy here in the United States. He cashed it all in. He moved to Italy and started an olive oil farm.
Wow.
And it's all the good stuff. There's not cut. It's 100%. And you taste it. I mean, you know it when you taste it.
Sure. Sure.
This is the good stuff.
The literature is so amazing, and so, the benefits of olive oil are so clear. all the research, whether it's blood pressure, lipids, inflammation, cancer, and like you said, the literature also tells us that it's the quality stuff that makes the difference. So it's not just any variety, yet these low-fat gurus that tell us to avoid olive oil and therefore olives, where do they get this from? Where do they come up with this, with this BS?
You know what? I wish I knew. I've been in this business, for almost 40 years, and I wish I knew where it comes from. It's, I all the way through college playing football. Even when I weighed 225 pounds, I was pretty ripped up and cut up, and my waist was never more than 32 inches back then. It's 30 or 31 now, and I'm 55 years old. And I think back to, I ate olives like there was no tomorrow. I ate avocados like there was no tomorrow. I drank olive oil. I would pour it on everything. I would drink it down. Never gained an ounce.
Yeah.
It's always just been, it's people who want to think that calorie in, calorie out is actually possible. But, to believe that calorie in, calorie out, or CICO, as some people like to call it, could work, you're now saying that you can run your car out of gas and then just keep going down the road without filling it up again. If you want to use the whole idea of the laws of thermodynamics, then okay, I'll take your argument. Run your car out of gas and get it to go down the road, because that's what you're asking me to do.
Yep. Definitely. Definitely. I think that, once again, the literature tells us that the Mediterranean diet is the most studied, the most proven. And those Mediterranean diet people, they're sucking down olive oil like the average person would suck down a McDonald's milkshake. I mean, they're eating it, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I've told this to patients over the years, before you go to bed one night, if you want, drink a glass of olive oil. You will wake up the next day, you will weigh less.
Right.
Instead, have a bowl or two of cereal, and the next day, you can just slap that right on your rear end. You're right. It's so not calories in, calories out. It's so much more complex than that. But, those people that are using fat for fuel, they get lean quick. And I tell you, you want to see the front, you want to see what Vinnie looks like. Look at the front cover of his book and how, the 8-pack that guy's sporting. Kudos to you, man.
Yeah, it's funny. I was reading, because when you're nerdy like me, you read a lot of stuff. I was reading the other day where Dr. Michael Greger, a big vegan guy, and
sure,
they that kind of thing, and he was explaining, was it Greger or was it Garth Davis? He was tweeting. They tweet at me all the time, because that's how I know that I'm starting to hurt them, because they're tweeting at me now. They used to tweet behind my back.
Yep.
Now they'll add me, so they're worried about me finally. He was saying, yeah, science shows that carbohydrates cannot convert to a long-chain triglyceride and turn to a fat. It's only used as an energy, and it's like, wow, that's a bold-faced lie. They're just doing bold-faced lies, but you're absolutely right, Jack. If you eat a bowl of cereal or ice cream or cake or anything, it's all the same thing to your liver. Your liver is going to, use a very, very tiny bit of it to make sure you're topped off with like glycogen. And the rest of it is going to change to a long-chain triglyceride, which is a fat. And as my good friend Gary Taubes eloquently put it in his second book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It, once you have a long-chain triglyceride slipping into your fat cell, your body does not want to break that down. It's almost like bringing a bed into the bedroom and then setting it up. There's no way you could get that bed out of the bedroom without tearing it down again. And that's a long-chain triglyceride. Once it's in the cell, it wants to stay put, right? And your brain will actually think you're starving. You can weigh 400 pounds, and your brain will keep telling your body you're starving, because it just does not want to use those calories.
And when insulin, is that one-way key. Insulin, we think of as only just a glucose storage hormone, but actually insulin just is a one-way key where it just shoves all those triglycerides inside of those fat cells, and then when insulin levels are high, those triglycerides cannot come out of the fat cells to get into the circulation to be utilized as energy. some of the quotes from Michael Greger and some of those other vegan propagandists, I mean, it's just, it makes no scientific sense. And it is so harmful, so dangerous, and totally not congruent with Mother Nature and how humans have existed and all animals have existed for millions of years.
I had one doctor on my show, I want to say about 2 or 3 months ago, and she said, when the mics went cold, she goes, "You mind if I ask you?" She goes, "Are the mics off?" And I said, yeah, we're done. She goes, "You know, can I ask you something?" And I go, yeah. She goes, how do you know? And I said, "How do I know what?" She goes, "How do you know what Michael Greger and Garth Davis and, you know, Clapper and all those guys, how do you know what they're thinking?" And I said, "I'm just guessing at it. Why?" And she goes, "Because they're trying to figure out how you know all this." And I said, "You got to take me back a second. How do I know all what?" She goes, "Well, on your podcast, you always say that they know they're lying, but they're doing it because they believe the means justifies the end. They think that even though they're lying, they'll say eating an egg is like smoking 5 cigarettes. They know that's a lie."
Yeah.
Right? But they just drop that lie. They, boom, here's a bomb. We'll just drop this lie. And then they'll walk away. They'll walk out of the room, right? And they can't figure out how I know about them. And I said, because no one in their right mind could believe that. So I know that they don't believe it. They're basically shills for the vegans. Yeah. And the vegans are shills for PETA, the ethical treatment of animals, a group that actually thinks it's a good idea that we don't even house pets. So my blind and deaf Jack Russell that I've been keeping alive for 3 years, they think that I'm enslaving that dog. I should open my door and let Topsy run out on the street right now, and Topsy would be okay. Yeah. That's what PETA actually thinks, right? And they have these guys who are shilling for him, not to mention Walter Willett up at Harvard University, who's lying left and right, but he's taking money from Unilever, from Old Ways, you name it. He's just taking millions. And then they put out these bullshit. Can I curse on your show? They put out these crappy epidemiological studies, which means nothing, and they get it peer reviewed by their friends who are also on the take. It's like a mafioso. I'm Italian, and I can't even get by the amount of mafioso that they deal with over at Harvard and Minnesota University, which is where Ansel Keys is from. You know, this is what I deal with all day long, and it drives me nuts. And they can't figure out how this idiot Cajun from Bayou Land moved to Hollywood and figured all this stuff out. But I'm the guy who did figure it all out. So they're all in trouble because now I have a movie coming out that's going to show these guys for what they are.
Well, listen, now we know why you're America's angriest trainer. And I think it's very easy to get angered by this as well. And I feel your pain when it comes to dealing with these people. And, obviously when we're talking about eating meat, we're talking about free range, grass-fed, ethically raised animals, wild seafood. We love all that. Why can't a vegan eat an oyster? I mean, does an oyster have any more or less feelings than a head of cabbage? Why can't we eat an oyster or a clam or a scallop? Why exclude those things? And oysters are the healthiest foods going.
Right. And they would say, well, how do you know? Right. Jack, how do you know that a muscle's not feeling any pain?
How do I know the cabbage doesn't feel pain? I guess, I don't know. Maybe they should eat nothing. Maybe they should just, suck on air and see how far they get with that.
Well, there are airtarians out there. I'm not making that up. That's a deal. That's a thing.
Maybe Michael Greger would become one of them, and Neil Barnard and all these people, And listen, my wife and I know you're an animal lover. We're animal lovers. We donate to charities and stuff like that. And what we're talking about is we're talking about the optimal way to health. And if we're talking about the optimal way to health, there's a way that we've done it for millions of years.
Hello, can you hear me?
Why try and reinvent the wheel?
We lost connection here.
I can hear you, Vinnie. We're good. I can hear you.
Are you there?
I can hear you, Vinnie.
Now you're back.
Okay. Back. Tell me, all right, so we'll finish up, and this is so awesome. You and I could obviously talk forever, and we'll talk again, I hope, sometime
Absolutely.
later. But tell me about the documentary and where people are going to be able to find it and when's it coming out.
We do not have distribution on it yet. We're going to take, obviously, a lot of people are talking to us. We're going to take the best distribution deal we can get because I've said at the end of the day, I will forego money to get it seen by more people. So whether that's Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime or any of these networks, it's going to be on the network that's going to bring us the biggest group of people. And so I will forego making money to make that happen. The movie's called Fat, a Documentary. We've collected close to $200,000 on it now, and we're still collecting money at Indiegogo.
Okay.
Because it's taking every dime we're spending, we're spending every dime on this movie.
For sure.
It is not going to look like these crappy movies you see like Cowspiracy or Forks Over Knives or, even some of the films you see on our side of the street. It's going to be, this is a film. This is a movie, and it's shot in high quality. We have a real director, an award-winning documentarian. Peter Pardini is doing this with me. We're spending all of our time right now. We've interviewed everyone we're going to interview. We're now in the stage of putting this movie together. We're in the edit booth every day.
Wow.
In fact, when I'm done here, we're back in the edit booth. And that happens every day until we're done. And we have so much incredible footage. And I'm going to name off some of the people, but we have so much incredible footage that we're actually thinking about making a second movie out of the spare footage.
Yep. That
could be a movie as good as the movie we're doing. I'm going to just name a few people that are in it. Eric Westman. Did I mention Eric Westman? Gary Taubes, Nina Teicholz, Brett Shear, Dave Feldman, Ivor Cummins, Dr. Georgia Eade, my good friend, Dr. Drew Pinsky is in it. And even the guy that started the Charlie Foundation is in it, Jim Abrams. And that's just, and there's more. Those are the ones on the top of my head that I can name. These people brought the goods like you would not believe.
Well, I mean, listen, even if you just said you had Gary Taubes, you got me to watch it for sure because Taubes, brilliant medical researcher, writer, his books have been so revolutionary. So that sounds like a fantastic, Eric Westman, of course, it sounds like a fantastic, and then I'm sure, Dr. Drew is going to be on there and just talking about the importance of fat and brain health, which is so.
Yeah, he talked about it as an addiction, from an addiction side, and how people get into the religion of diet. Drew, I brought Drew in as almost like stunt casting because he's a buddy of mine, and I do his show all the time, and I host for him when he's away, and so I said, I got to ask Drew to be in it. Drew brought the goods.
Yeah.
But you were right what you said about Gary Taubes. I could have made a movie I could have called it Gary and Nina. And just put those two on screen and did nothing else, and that would have been the best movie ever.
No doubt. There, some of the few people that are just bringing the truth amongst all this other stuff. People ask me all the time, "Oh, did you see Forks Over Knives? Did you see Cowspiracy?" I'm like, I don't have time for those propaganda films. They're aggravating. They're untrue. They're unnatural. I just can't watch it. And most of them are poorly made on top of it. So kudos to you. I'm excited to see your documentary. That's going to be very exciting.
And yeah, we are planning on getting this one out, and we are planning on doing more. So I'm going to ask you on camera, would you be willing to be in one of my documentaries if we do continue this?
Oh, no, listen, man, you and I are brothers, in arms on this one, and we need to stay together on it because this is how the truth is going to get out there. And there's, a beautiful thing that Al Gore invented called the internet. And through the internet, we're going to, just take it, directly to the people. And man, there's so much, as you know, against this, right? When we're trying to get this message out there, the big food industry, big agriculture, big pharma, they're all in cahoots against people like you and I. And that, for us to band together, it's really, really important to get that truth out there. So thanks again for making the movie.
Well, and thank you for doing what you're doing over there. And Jack, I need to get you back on my podcast again real soon. So let me know when you're ready.
You got it, my friend. Thank you again, everybody. This is the Healthy Heart Show. Dr. Jack Wolfson. Special thanks to my guest, Vinnie Tortorich. Go check out his website. We'll have his information in our show notes. Check out his book and his upcoming documentary as well. Until next time, see ya.